All right, I'm live. So hopefully this works again like it did last time. It was wonderful. I didn't have to push anything and people were able to join. So it's Friday and the weekend is ahead of us, and I'm hoping that everyone has or is going into their weekend feeling confident in their recovery, and if not, maybe see what you can set in place so you can feel confident. So maybe that's you're struggling with, I don't know, if you're living on your own. A lot of times weekends can be hard if you're living on your own, because maybe if you're typically at work during the weekday or weekdays, or you're at school and you're seeing people, then weekends typically are much easier to kind of isolate yourself, right? It's easier to kind of like pull up in your apartment or in your house and do your thing. Sorry, we've got a toy going. Oops. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Hazel turned on a toy. Didn't think you'd want that in the background. So I'm hoping that people can join, because last time I don't know what I did, but people came on. And it shows that there are people here watching. If you are watching, can you do like a message or something just so I know that I'm getting the messages? Hopefully. Shoot, I'm wondering now why I'm not. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yay. Hey there, I'm so happy to finally catch a live. You're truly, I don't want to read this out loud. This is embarrassing. But it's very, very nice. Thank you. She said, I'm actually, one of the things that I had to work on a lot in recovery, and that I still do work on, because I think it's really important, is accepting compliments. I used to, and some of you can probably relate to this, when I was sick, anytime someone would give me a compliment, I'd be like, oh yeah, right, and I'd like throw it right back in their face. Oh yeah, right, no, I'm not, totally. I just could never accept a compliment. And this one is really meaningful, and I'm very grateful for it, so thank you. It says, I'm so happy to finally catch a live. You are truly the best and one of the main sources of inspiration and information in my committing to recovery. That is so, so, so nice. That means a lot to me. Those are the kinds of messages that keep me doing videos, because I obviously don't get paid for these videos, right? I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm not like changing the world with my channel, but just those people that message me and tell me that because of these videos or because of this message, they're committing to recovery, or they've decided to really go for it. And that seriously means, you have no idea how much that means to me. So thank you so much. That really is so sweet. Thank you also. Yeah, Elizabeth, thank you so much. Megan, hello. Anna, hello. First time I could join live. Yeah, so what I'm trying to do with lives is doing them at different times, right? Because everyone's time zones are different. So instead of getting stuck in doing them like right after I finish work for the day, sometimes I'm trying to get them in the mornings. Usually later evenings are a little trickier for me with kids home, but sometimes they're off doing their own thing and Zach's asleep on the couch and I could do one. Thank you for these lives. Yeah, so appreciate your content. Awesome. So I'm glad there are some people on here. Do you guys have any questions? Before I started seeing people come on, I think I was talking about weekends being harder, right? Because it's easier to isolate and kind of go through your routine and not have anyone bother you. And those are the times where I was saying these weekends coming up, if you're not going into your recovery, maybe with some plans to maybe go out to lunch with someone, or meet up with someone you haven't seen in a long time, or connect with a family member, or somebody that's really involved in your recovery that you plan to talk to. Like, be sure that you have something set up throughout the weekend to ensure that you're staying strong and committed throughout your recovery. So that's just kind of something that I wanted to give you before the weekend. What's the time in there? Is almost 8 p.m. here. So the time here is 10:50. So I have about 10 minutes. The time here is 10:50 in the morning, 10:50 a.m. in the morning. And I'm about to start work for the day, but I had some time before, so I thought I'd jump on. You have a big question, okay, and I have to remember to read these out loud too, because I forget you guys can't see them, so I will read this loud and slowly. But what would ideally committing to recovery look like? Like maybe tips on how to eat truly unrestricted. Yeah. So this one is, it's rare that someone is like, I'm gonna eat unrestrictedly, and then that very moment they are perfect at eating unrestrictedly. Now don't listen to that and be like, oh, okay, so she said I could take forever to get into unrestricted eating. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it's not because someone's not trying, it's just you don't quite comprehend how much food it actually takes, or how on top of it you have to be to responding to your mental hunger. So I think that's kind of what it is. Hazel, shh, be quiet. So I think that's kind of what it is it's like, when I started, I 100% was committed to eating unrestrictedly and really was like going for it, my best. But then as time went on, a week goes by and I realized like, I have so much more mental hunger than I realized. I didn't realize how many different ways mental hunger is popping up. And so then you have to kind of like, okay, so what am I gonna do to be able to honor every single thought of food that I have, or any kind of, mental hunger that's popping up? And for me, it was like a full-time job. So it did feel like I couldn't distract myself by doing lots and lots of other things, especially outside of the house, because what would happen is then I would just get distracted and not eat. So that's why I talked the other day about writing a schedule, primarily of things that you're gonna do that you can do sitting down in your house, right? So that you have your house stocked with all your challenging foods and you can just be home and eat. So my number one advice is like slow down your life. So unrestricted eating and rest, obviously, but like cut out all the unnecessary things you don't need to do. And this is everyone's biggest fear, right? Wait, so you mean I can't go to the store 3 times a day, or I can't do this and that? It's like, no, like really only the things that you have to get done, and then everything else I want you to like find things you can occupy kind of your mind with while you're sitting, because that's when your mental hunger is going to pop up the most. And that's terrifying, but that's when you have to respond, okay? So step number 1 was just become aware of that mental hunger and honor it. Do everything in your power to honor it. And then 2, each day I just made a goal, like I talked about, I feel like I talked about this a few days ago, where I challenged myself to eat all this food, right? And I felt so proud of myself, but I knew looking back, there were still just little things that I knew I kind of held back on. So then the following day, I ensured that I ate like just as much food and even more. And then the next day, I ate as much as that day before and even more. And I kept topping my days and increasing my intake until I got to that point where I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm in the swing of this. I feel like I got the feeling of what unrestricted eating is like. Let's do this. So that's how it worked for me. Let's see. My daughter's adorable. Yeah, thanks. Sometimes she can be loud, and I think she's going to be an extrovert because she really loves the camera. How to eat unrestrictedly with SIBO and a doctor advising restricted diet. Yeah, I get that question a lot. Like, what if I actually have like a medical condition? Do your best, right? You have to do your best. Obviously, if it's an actual like diagnosed medical condition and there are things that you can't get around eating without making yourself extremely sick, you know what you can do though, right? There's plenty of other foods that you can challenge yourself with. As close to those things that you wish you could eat that you can't because of your medical condition, that you still can challenge yourself with. So don't let the eating disorder take that and run with it. You have to be extremely honest and accountable with yourself. Can you tell more about your extreme thirst during your recovery? How long did it last, and were you more thirsty than physically hungry? I have that problem. No, I didn't have like extreme thirst. I just noticed that I was like more thirsty. Maybe because I was drinking like low calories, so I felt like I wanted to drink more. I don't know. But it wasn't like a problem for me. I didn't feel like it was like excessive, extreme thirst. And I was for sure more hungry for food than drinking, for sure, especially water, for sure. So yeah, that wasn't really an issue for me. My guess though is every time that you're feeling so thirsty more than that physical hunger, always eat something when you're drinking. So always eat something with what you're drinking and see if that doesn't help, or maybe perhaps you thought you were thirsty but really actually were hungry but didn't feel it in your stomach. I know you've probably been asked this before, but how do you identify fullness? Do you eat until you're stuffed? Do you eat until you're stuffed, or until your food is gone, or just until you don't feel like eating anymore? The last one probably would be the answer. I guess depending on how honest you are with yourself though, right? Because sometimes you can be like, oh, I don't feel like eating anymore, and it's your eating disorder that's kind of having a say in that, right? So I would say a combination of feeling really physically full, but then not just that, because sometimes you can feel really physically full and still want to eat more, which means you need to eat more, right? Or sometimes you can be like, oh, I don't want to eat anymore, I've had enough, but not really feel full because your eating disorder is kind of making you feel anxious or scared to eat more. So it would need to be a combination of both, of certain, like that you're really, really full, and then certainty that you're like, I really don't want any more food. Like I'm disinterested in food. And honestly, if you're listening to me going, that never happens, are you kidding me? I always want to eat. Don't worry, you're not alone. For me, about probably 8 months straight, I could never say I wasn't interested in food anymore after a meal. I still always wanted to eat. I never felt satisfied. Full, I felt full a lot. But no matter how full I felt, I still could like walk away from the table being like, okay, what else do I want to eat right now? What else should I eat? I still want to eat, you know, like it just never, I never felt that satisfaction factor for months and months and months of consistently eating unrestrictedly. So don't let that freak you out. Hello, Robin. I'm glad you made it too. Let's see. Thank you. Why every time I push that? Sorry, guys. Every time I push for the comments to come up, something pops up. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It could be when the question about the thirst. That's what I'm saying. Eat with the thirst, because my guess is you're actually hungry, but you're not feeling it in your stomach. So you're thinking you're thirsty when really you're hungry. So yeah, it's definitely can be a sign of mental hunger. Let's see. Let's say you have issues with food timings. I tend to distract myself until late at night and end up not eating until very late. Yeah, are there ways to, I'm having such issues with these. Are there any ways to combat that specifically? So you have issues with food timings. I tend to distract myself until late at night and end up not eating until very late. Yeah, so I used to do the exact same thing. My entire day consisted of, okay, how can I get through the day with eating as little as possible until that magic time at night happens? And then once the clock strikes, you know, that 9 o'clock, I mean, it switched over the years, but let's say 9 o'clock at night. Once it hits 9 o'clock, then I can eat whatever I want, all those things I've been thinking about, the same old stuff I eat every single night. My life depended on that, right? That was what I was living for. And I was like, the better I was during the day at restriction, and the more busy I could keep myself, the more of a high adrenaline rush I would get going into that evening binge. It's a problem, obviously. It's really, really common. To me, it makes total sense that it's because we're in that famine state. We think we're migrating, so we have to like move during the day, not eat very much, and then night comes and you can kind of calm down. Okay, now it's time where we can eat, right? And so you have to switch that. I have this conversation frequently with clients where they're like, I'm not hungry in the morning. Like you're telling me to eat this big breakfast, but like I'm not even like physically feeling hungry or mentally feeling hungry. I don't want to eat during the day. It's like repulsive to me. Well, it's because you've conditioned yourself. It's because you've conditioned yourself to not eat in the morning. How many years or months did you go not eating when you woke up in the morning? So obviously your body's not stupid. It's not going to keep begging you for food when you never give it food in the morning. Start giving it food in the morning and it'll start getting used to getting food in the morning, okay? So you have to kind of force that initially, getting that food in earlier in the day, and stop distracting yourself, right? I mean, that's kind of obvious. You've got to stop distracting yourself. Your number one priority, nothing else happens until you get in food, until you eat. Anything else that you can do while you're eating is fine, obviously other than movement, but you can't be distracting yourself with all this stuff, meditation, phone calls, paying bills, all these things that you could do sitting down that are keeping you from eating. No, first you eat, and then you can do your little, tasks that you need to do at home, but you eat while you're doing those tasks too if you want to. So be honest with yourself. I feel like that's the theme here. Stop distracting yourself and then recognize it is going to feel forced. You're just going to have to make yourself eat these things that you don't want to eat during the day. That's another mistake I made at the beginning too. Was, okay, fine, I'll eat during the day, but all I did was ate my like safe foods during the day, and then I held off for all like the treats at night. Eat the scary foods for you first thing in the morning. I feel like every video I'm mentioning this, but it's exactly why I did the candy bar challenge, because that terrified me, and I had a rule in my head, no chocolate until this certain time at night. Is it normal to be very tired in recovery? I seriously can't get up and sleep every chance I get. How do I handle this? It makes eating unrestrictedly so difficult. Yeah, it's very normal to feel extremely tired. Like I was so confused when that like exhaustion hit. It didn't hit until I completely stopped everything. So not just exercise, any lower level movement, any little 5-minute walk even was telling my brain that we were still migrating. Once I stopped everything, that's when my brain was like, oh my gosh, we can relax, we can rest, and we can start repairing. And then that's when the exhaustion hit. It's totally normal. And what do you do to eat unrestricted while you're so tired? I don't know, like really easy, convenient food that you can take to your bed and lay down and eat it, or on your couch, you just have like a little basket of food right there and you can grab it. It doesn't take a lot of energy to eat. It's almost eerie how similar all of us behave with restrictive eating disorder. It is eerie. It is. People ask if I'm a mind reader, and I'm like, no, remember, I had an eating disorder for 20 years. I'm not a mind reader. I just experienced very similar things that everyone else with eating disorders experience. How to make the leap out of quasi-recovery. Weight is normal. Loved ones forget, and there is no serious motivation, but the ed is still there. Maybe worse. It's infuriating. I honestly feel like this is the hardest place to be. It is so hard. My heart goes out to people who are in that position where you look normal now. Maybe you never even looked abnormal or underweight. So whether you did or didn't, but at this point now you look normal. So support has kind of dissipated. People just assume you're fine, right? You just kind of moved on. They've moved on. You're still struggling crazy in your head, but you're trying to convince yourself every single day that you're fine because you don't want to have to do what it takes to get to full recovery, right? Because it's hard for you to justify doing it when no one else is worried. And that's where that's where I feel like people that do get out of that quasi in that state are people that are going to have a very sustainable recovery, full recovery, because you're doing it for yourself at that point, right? You're not doing it initially because your mom and dad are making you, because your boyfriend's telling you to, because your husband's going to leave you if you don't. You're doing it because you don't want to live that way anymore. And to me, that's the most intrinsic, most powerful motivation you can have to get yourself out of quasi-recovery. For once, there's no pressure on you, and you're doing it for yourself. Now, once you decide to get out of quasi-recovery, you can absolutely ask for support. So don't feel like, well, if I do choose to get out of quasi, I can't ask for help because I don't look sick. You absolutely can. Absolutely. Majority of my clients, a lot of my clients are not in that typical sick-looking body, and they've reached out for help because they know that they need that extra support. So please don't let that eating disorder convince you that you're not worthy of help, or that you don't deserve support, or that you don't deserve recovery. It's a big, huge lie. It's irritating that everybody falls for it, but it takes a really brave person and someone who really wants a better future for themselves to get out of it. And even if you don't feel like, oh, I don't even know what I have to live for, I'm single, I'm this age, and I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to have kids, and all these things, I get that. I can understand how that would feel hard to then enter recovery, but what you're doing now isn't making you happy, so why not give it a shot, right? Like, you don't have a lot to lose. I can tell you, being single and potentially not having any kids with an eating disorder is a lot worse than being single and potentially not having any kids without an eating disorder. Okay? So if you think that eating disorder is protecting you from pain, it's just causing more pain. Let's see. Should I continue eating these foods or focus on other foods I'm not eating? Oh, is it normal to fixate on specific foods when trying to eat unrestricted? Right now I have a weird obsession with unshelled salted peanuts and cereal. They're all I want to eat. Should I continue eating these foods or focus on other foods I'm not eating? Well, I mean, keep those in there. Like, if those are still challenging for you and you're enjoying, I'm not going to tell you to stop eating them, but maybe try different kinds of peanuts. Try honey roasted. Try chocolate covered peanuts, M&Ms, right? Try different kinds of cereal. Don't get fixated on just one type of food. I tended to do this as well, where, okay, I can eat pizza. I'm doing really good. I can eat pizza, but it's only from this one place, at this one time of day, and this one kind, and this one situation with other people around, blah, blah, blah. All these rules about when I could eat the pizza. So you need to kind of look at that and be like, okay, well, is this an eating disorder thing that I'm just getting stuck on, like falling into this very rigid structure of how I'm doing this? Well, this was a challenging food though, so I'm doing recovery, right? Yes and no. You're still challenging foods, which is great, but while you're doing that every single day and you're really stuck on that, there's so many other foods that you still need to branch out and try, right? So keep eating the peanuts and the cereal, that's fine. Add stuff to it. Mix it up. Get different brands, different types, and then add stuff to that. That's still challenging. Did you feel that you have to have permission from who knows to eat? I'm waiting for something. If I eat before I get a therapist, I think they won't believe me and they think I'm messing them about. Yeah, that's just, you're playing games with your eating. Your eating disorder is like playing games with you, This is, you don't need to prove anything to anybody. Like, you're sick, right? And if you have to prove that to a therapist, you've got the wrong therapist. You don't need to prove that to anybody. It's not like who can be the most starved and most sick before they seek help is going to get the best help. It doesn't work that way. How do I get out of the mindset of having to earn my food by moving a lot? Stop moving and eat a lot. I'm serious. Like, that was a hard one for me too. Is like the link in my brain of movement and eating were so tied together. You know, it's like on my more intense days, I got to eat more. And on the days when I wasn't as intense or didn't think in my head I did enough, then I had to kind of pull back and restrict, or I couldn't enjoy it without guilt. And that link was so strong. There was no way in this lifetime I would have ever rewired that if I didn't completely abstain from movement, all forms, and eat a lot of food. So it's not abstain from movement and then just eat less, that you're not getting anywhere that way, right? And it's not, well, I'll just keep a little bit of movement in and I'll just eat more. I mean, I'm sure you've all tried those approaches. They don't work. They leave you feeling hopeless. Don't do it. And if you have done it, learn from the past and recognize maybe this is why I'm still in this cycle, because I haven't actually done the one thing I don't want to do, which is completely rest and really go for it with the food and not hold back at all. I kind of like to call unrestricted eating like unleashed eating. Like imagine if you're like holding back like a really ferocious, crazy, aggressive dog, and then you just unleash them. Like they're gonna go crazy, right? For whatever it is they wanted, they're gonna go for it. That's how I want you to be with your eating, like unleashed. There's no holding back. Let's see. That's a great idea. It's a great idea. I really appreciate the suggestion to branch out to either foods that are similar but different to the foods. Yeah, exactly. So it's not like, well, I don't want to give up the cereal and peanuts because I love it. That's going to feel restrictive. But if I'm not eating the other things, then I'm not challenging it. So do both. Yep. Did you ever reach the point where it wouldn't be triggering to see your weight? Yeah, absolutely. Totally. Throughout my whole pregnancy, I saw my weight. I think I saw it probably before pregnancy too at a doctor's office. And at that point, like once you've been free from your eating disorder long enough, I don't think there's any number on that scale that I could see and allow myself to go backwards. Like it's not worth the sacrifice for me ever again. And I've learned that weight is really irrelevant to your happiness, right? And it's really irrelevant to your health as well. Like it has nothing, there's that, you don't need a number to tell you if you're okay. You don't need a number to tell you if you feel, healthy and strong. You don't need a number to fit inside of a BMI box to be considered acceptable. Like the number means nothing. And the faster that you can learn that, the better. And that's why I tell people to throw out their scales. Just get rid of them. Just teach your brain that it's no longer important to have a scale in your house because what you weigh does not matter. So you absolutely can get to a place where you really don't care anymore and you can't see it. Getting out of the mindset, did you ever, yeah, okay. Getting out of the mindset that less is better, yeah. So you're gonna eat more and it's gonna feel worse, right? You're gonna feel more and it's gonna feel worse. And then eventually, as you keep eating more, your brain's gonna stop telling you this is a bad thing. And it'll get to a point where eating more is actually starting to feel better. And you're starting to feel more alive and you're starting to heal internally and your mind's starting to think clearer. So really, honestly, more is better, but you've got to rewire that by doing it first before you believe it. You're welcome, Elizabeth, for answering your questions. I've got two Elizabeths here. Okay, how did you combat restriction in other areas of your life? I currently struggle to purchase new clothes or expensive food items. I will even not burn my candles. Is there a way to work on this? Yeah. Well, with purchasing new clothes, that was hard because like I wasn't, as my body was changing throughout recovery, I didn't want to invest a lot of money in nice clothes because I didn't know where my body was going to end up. So it's totally okay to buy really cheap clothes, even thrift store clothes, like borrow clothes, whatever you need to while your body's changing. Once you get to a place where it's stable and it's kind of plateaued, if you have the means to then go ahead and buy some nice stuff for yourself, for sure, go for it. Now with food, I think a lot of times, I used to be like the master of like the discount section, right? Like all the discounted crap that nobody wanted that was expired 3 weeks ago was the stuff that I felt like I was allowed to eat. And I've talked about this before, where like the fresh brownies versus like the old style cookies. I would always eat like the old style cookies. Even though like both would be challenging foods, it just felt safer to eat like the crap. So you've got to recognize this is restriction and this is mean. Why am I doing this? Remember, my goal is to treat myself like I treat a friend. Like I actually like myself. Even if you don't feel like you do now, start treating yourself like you're worthy of fresh, good food, right? Not stale cookies. You're worthy of the nicer brand peanut butter that you know you really like, not the 99-cent discounted stuff. So you just kind of have to, the advice there is like, just again, a lot of the theme here today is just do it. Like you just have to buy the more expensive food, and not the expensive Whole Foods food, right? But the more expensive, maybe the premium delicious brand of ice cream. I remember like buying Tillamook, whereas before I'd always buy, well, here's the funny thing though, this is funny. So ask yourself this and check yourself. So I had no problem buying Halo Top which was extremely expensive, a total ripoff. It tasted like crap, right? No problem buying that. But if I had to buy like Tillamook versus like the generic brand, I couldn't do it. It was too much. I couldn't, even though it was like 10 times the amount of the Halo Top, the quantity wise, I couldn't do it. I couldn't wrap my head around it. So ask yourself too, can you spend a lot of money on safe foods and not have a problem? But not a lot of money on like actually good foods that would be challenging for you. And if that's the case, check yourself. You have to change that. Stop buying the safe foods altogether and start investing your money in the things you actually want. Okay, I have just realized how long I've been going on for. I gotta end this. Thank you for everything you've done for us who are recovering. Your tips and stories are so important and huge help. You guys are making me feel so grateful for all of you. Seriously. I'm weaning Hazel, I mentioned that, and I didn't know this, but it makes me very emotional. So little things make me cry. So don't make me cry today. I'm not going to do it. What about spitting food out or destroying food, tearing it up and covering it in bleach? I do it loads and it feels horribly powerful. Well, it's horrible. That's very disordered. You have to stop doing that. Absolutely. Those are like extremely blatant eating disorder behaviors that have to stop. I feel like we all need t-shirts that say recovery, just do it. That'd be wonderful. All right. Maybe last question here. How do we learn to love our cellulite? All my life I've had it and tried to get rid of it. Now that I've gained weight, it's back. I know media tells us to hate it. We got to stop conforming. Honestly, that was something that I held and clung on to really tight in my recovery. Was I never considered myself someone that just like conformed. Like I didn't like in groups, like I wanted to be the leader. I didn't want to be told what to do. At work, I didn't like having bosses telling me when I had to be somewhere. In therapy or treatment, right? I didn't like people telling me, this is what you have to do today, and this is how you have to. It didn't work for me, right? And so I think I was like, I'm going to tap into that part of Becky and use that to go against diet culture and to use that to stop listening to all of the messages that we hear that our bodies aren't okay. Why have I conformed? Like when I saw what was actually going on with my eating disorder, that I was like falling for all this crap and I was conforming to feeling like I had to look a certain way and I couldn't have cellulite and I had this and this. Like, ew, I didn't like that. It really irritated me that I fell for that. And that's a lot of that like kind of anger and that passion about like, that's not me, I don't conform, was really helpful for me. It was very motivating, kept me focused in recovery as the cellulite came back, as the rolls came back, as I grew out of, the clothes that I thought that I needed to fit into. I was like, this is Becky. This is me. I'm coming back and I'm not conforming to diet culture anymore. So try to take on that attitude in your own recovery. All right, I have talked way too long. I'm about to start working, so I've got to go. But it was really great to answer all these questions. I know that these aren't as short and precise as like my regular YouTube videos that I do. And I'll try to keep doing those, but I really like these lives because I think I said this before, I don't have to think. I just read the questions and answer. So it's me being lazy, but I also feel like these are really good questions people are asking because these are questions, that are really common that I get asked all the time. So you guys are asking great questions. Okay, have a great weekend. Bye.